So what's it like to buy your first cryptocurrency on Kraken? Well, let's say I'm at a food truck I've never tried before. Am I gonna go all in on the loaded taco? No, sir. I'm keeping it simple, starting small. That's trading on Kraken. Pick from over 190 assets and start with the $10 in your pocket. Easy. Go to kraken.com and see what crypto can be. Not investment advice. Crypto trading involves risk of loss. Cryptocurrency services are provided to U.S. and U.S. territory customers by Payward Interactive Inc., PWI, DBA Kraken. View PWI's disclosures at kraken.com/legal/disclosures.
This episode is brought to you by Merrill. Join one of the most iconic names in wealth management, Merrill. You'll be part of a dynamic team of advisors and specialists working hard every day to grow their clients' wealth. And with the support of best-in-class research, advanced digital tools, and the resources of a global institution, it's truly an opportunity you can be bullish about. Learn more at careers.bankofamerica.com. Copyright 2024, Bank of America Corporation.
Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I've got Tom Altman coming out of, and he's actually a former radio DJ turned web developer, and now he's evolved himself into a technology leader. I've seen tech leaders and entrepreneurs come from so many diverse backgrounds because you have to integrate all these skills. And he's going to talk to us about fractional CTO. We're going to talk about AI, aligning technology with vision for bold innovation. Really happy to have him on the show and spread good vibes to the guests. So Tom, welcome.
Thank you very much. Excited to talk to you today, Christopher.
Yeah. Briefly introduce yourself and we'll dive right into the conversation.
Sure. Tom Altman, like you said, from Iowa here. I'm a married guy with three kids, all boys. So we had a good fun growing up. They're in their 20s now. So it's been kind of a good phase of life that's changing gears. So yeah, I joke around. I'm a failed radio DJ turned web developer. I wasn't really that great at web development. So they said, hey, you could be a manager. If you can't do it, you might as well teach it. So that's where I live. 25 years in the technology space, marketing firms, agencies. In the last about 13 years, I spent a lot more time at e-commerce. So enjoyed that and moved my way into fractional semi-unwillingly. You get pushed in the direction and you go. So yeah, now I work for a firm called Altus CXO. We're groups of fractionals. Fractional CFOs have been a thing for a little longer. And now these other disciplines are starting to see it. And I think companies are saying, hey, this works pretty good. We don't have to pay that full salary, but we can get someone's full experience. So it's been enjoyable to work with different people. And my ADHD brain loves mixing it up with different people all the time. So I'm enjoying it a lot. It's good. It's really nice.
Yeah. What's really interesting is because this fractional trend reminds me of the 1099 or the independent contractor era. And we were talking backstage and you were talking about how it's one of the last roles to catch on. Expand upon that.
Sure. Like we said, I think it's easy to put the CFO fractional in a box, right? It's come in, you have these said things. What you'll find is with technology, there's just a wide range. You can go from hardware to software to innovations. And then you pick up this AI business that's been attacking us at all angles. And it can even be seen as where you can have multiple fractionals doing many things for a company at a given time. And I think it's an advantage, really, if you think part-time maybe is another way to say it. Come on, help us do this thing. And then you can go away for a while and come back when we need some more help. So we've just seen a lot of companies where they have great people, they're growing. And then what happens is that maybe that person just needs a little help, right? And maybe from an experienced personnel. And that's where fractional CTOs and others come into play, help that manager grow into maybe a director or a CTO style role. And I think it's great for everyone at that point because you can bring someone along and not all fractionals want to just work with a company that's doing their thing and kind of juggling. So I think it's a win for both the company looking for help and the fractional person themselves.
Yeah. The other question I have for you is because you integrate technology, strategy, and innovation. And so how do you identify specific technological needs of a business? What are those tech needs and what is your approach to integrating these technology in a way that aligns with the company's long-term strategy?
Yeah. What's great for us, the sooner we can get involved, the better, because what tends to happen, and I'm not pointing fingers at CEOs here, Christopher, but I think they have a strategy in their mind and they probably do an okay job of sharing it with that top level C-suite. And then the telephone game kind of gets into play as it goes down the line. And what I've seen many times happen is the team that's probably working hard to build up the technology stack is probably not fully aligned with that strategy as they may need to be. And then I think when the questions occur is like, well, what are those guys doing? What are those guys and gals doing down there? They're not doing what we need. And I think that's where you start to see that separation of strategy and technology. So what we find can be the best bet is as soon as we can get involved, like preferably like an example might be like an ERP installation, right? Business software. If we can help before you even start to call any companies, so we can help you understand what systems do we have now, which ones are most important, and who do they interact with, to then even down to the process levels. What processes are we doing and how do we get those processes done? Because generally what happens when you try to integrate an ERP, you need to find a balance, right? You need to get the processes done that you've been doing for a long time, but you do have to bend a little bit into that new system's way. So we can help share the scars that have already happened and then kind of mold those two things together and do it, I call it in the ERP systems way. So we merge these two lanes of traffic and then to accomplish those strategies. Because I know this may come as a crazy idea, but these salespeople on some of these calls, they'll say yes to most anything because they're passing it on to the implementation team. So we try to get ahead of those things and really hone in on what is the most important things to get done. And when that can happen, I think that's when we're doing our best work. Of course, the next best thing we come in and just help because we've already made these choices. So we'll come in and rearrange and try to get things back on track, solving tech tangles, as we call it sometimes.
And just for the audience, because they may not be familiar with these.
Sure.
Well, when you say ERP, what do you mean by ERP?
Yeah, it's your enterprise business software. It's what runs your business. And every business has a different brand name. A really popular one that you might be hearing on podcasts is NetSuite. NetSuite's a cloud-based ERP. Microsoft Dynamics would be another big example. But then every different business type and brand, they have their own. There's a lot of pieces of software that are specific for manufacturing or healthcare. Those are the kind of things that we're talking about when we say ERP.
Got it. Yeah, which is really enlightening because the next question I have for you is when you look at a business, so for example, like my business, we're a media technology company and we have different technological needs like editing software or like CRM or these types of software. When you talk about like large scale corporations, how do you identify, what are like examples of specific technological needs? Is it AI or enlighten us?
Everybody needs AI now, right? No matter what. I think of some of the e-commerce teams I worked in, for example. Their process when they were small worked well. One person served multiple jobs. And as the company grew, that spread out. So there was a lot of manual work that got done. So one piece of the puzzle could be, what are the things in that process can we start to automate? And then as you start to introduce AI, because automation has been happening for a long time, but now all of a sudden we have an opportunity. Hey, a question came in from a customer service team. Can we write a draft based on a prompt that will answer 80% of the question? And then instead of that customer service representative having to come in and fully bake out a whole response, they can just make a couple simple tweaks and send it off. So those might be two different pieces that would work. But you think of scheduling, right? Some of these companies have to schedule people. And that's an opportunity, right? We've already see these calendar booking links. And it really is just two calendars speaking to each other. And they can certainly find a time if it's free on both ends to make that happen. So I think that's the baseline, the early things we think about. And then as we look at, that's why we get so focused on processes. And that everyone wants to pull their hair out when the processes are starting to come up. But that's really the next thing is you take a look at a process. What of those things can we use in automation to help streamline? So maybe we can just help those people get more done in a day. I think that's my favorite thing about AI and automation. I think it's just going to help take the mundane pieces of work off people's plates and allow them to do the things that maybe they get a little more excited about.
Yeah. Fascinating. I really like, and then you talk about payments and just automation and scaling. The next question I have for you is with remote work dynamics in play now, and from your perspective as a fractional CTO, what are key components of managing remote teams effectively? You could talk about software and productivity, employee wellness, engagement, all of that.
Yeah, it's so interesting right now, and you're seeing all these companies forcing the return to work. And I think what that really does, I think remote work exposes bad management, unfortunately. And I think it stinks because I think a lot of times, like even myself growing up, if I wouldn't had looked for opportunities to learn to be a better person or a better manager, I think I could have fallen into that. And I think all remote work does, it exposes, like, Christopher, if I'm managing you and I don't give you any sets of expectations, it's not going to be better when we don't actually see each other's face to make it better. I think what is kind of an exposure of this happening. And I think there's opportunities with remote work to, like a lot of things, is to leverage some of these tools to help people be better together. Teams is a big one because it's in the Microsoft Office space, so everyone uses it, but even getting people to think about what does that mean? Like, it's not just using the chat feature, right? Let's organize. Let's use the Teams channel and then allow us all to see what everyone's doing. Because I think it tends to just end up being a lot like what we talked about at the beginning, where if the CEO isn't sending down the strategy, it's not getting to the manager. If it's not getting to the manager, it's not getting to the people. And then what in the world are they really working on? So if there's a platform or a way that we can just permeate the technology or the strategy throughout the company, it just feels like enlightened folks seem to do better work when they know what they're working towards. So I think that we have more opportunity than ever with the tool that we have given to us almost at a no extra cost charge to really bring up people's day.
Yeah. And because you mentioned earlier on that if you're not using AI, I think there was a really great quote by Peter Diamandis. He was saying, like, if your company is not using AI and implementing AI now, you're not going to have a company in a few years. How should companies and businesses and corporations be thinking about AI and implementing from a strategic planning perspective? For example, automation, scaling, payments, innovation, collaboration. How are you thinking about that as a CTO?
Yeah, how I think about it a lot goes back to what we talked about. Let's take a peek at those processes, right? Where are things that are just, if you can write down exactly what that you need to do in those training documents, SOPs, whatever you want to call them, if I can write down exactly what I need to do, if you need to click here and then do this and then enter this and then click here and then save, that's really something that can be automated, right? And then we get to amp it up like we talked about in the customer service example, because now we can take a knowledge base of information, which we already have, and now we can have a prompt or an AI agent ask questions of that knowledge base and then put together some pretty good answers, probably sometimes better than we can ourselves. Like, in a great example of that, put your mind around it visually, is I worked for a company that sold fireplace remote controls, right? And they're a high margin item, but by the time you make phone calls and you spend a half an hour on someone debugging why their remote control doesn't work properly, what we found was we were able to collect the manuals of those remote controls and we'd put them together into a knowledge base, and then you could ask questions to that knowledge base. All the answers a lot of times are right there in the product manual. So if there's a way to connect, to put that bucket of knowledge, all those manuals into one folder, and then ask questions about it, you could actually have people run through a routine that would then take away 66% of someone's call time with a customer. And at the end, just follow with them in the human, say, hey, Christopher, did that fix your problem? Yep, I needed a new battery. Or no, I'm still got problems. Great, let me figure out what the next step. So I think what we'll find that's really hard to wrap our mind around because it just comes so fast, but we're going to find that those questions that are already answered in documentation are things that are really easy for AI to help assist. I look at it as more of an assist, right? It's cars, right? We can move stuff around without them, but boy, does it make it nice to to drive somewhere maybe than to just walk. It's just an enhancement in the short term, and in the long term, who knows what it will all handle for us, and maybe better than we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like I was referencing, it was like in 2020, like I said, Peter, he was saying, if your company is not thinking about it, you're going to be behind. Now it's, if you're not implementing it, you're already behind. The next question I have for you is really interesting because I've studied a lot of tech entrepreneurs and really successful. And it seems like they come from such a diverse backgrounds. Could be math, economics. You're a DJ, like music, the creatives. What are the key components of success in the tech industry, and how do you combine all of these attributes to achieve your ikigai?
Yeah, I think a lot of times it's those people that are outside of the industry that come in and make a change because they see things differently. You get that tunnel vision sometimes when you're not careful. And I think that's it. That's where you see some people from outside coming in. What's really great, and one of the things that I do use AI for is for brainstorming, because it really allows you to think completely different than you might think, right? I always think of like logo design, like you see these artists and they have this pattern, and it's really hard for someone to say, I have a wild graffiti style art pattern and then a very traditional, right? But with AI, it allows you to see all those different angles, and you can ask it. It learns to know you a little bit and says, what am I forgetting today? What am I not asking? And I think it has the opportunity to do that. But I think that's why you see it previously, all these people coming from these different areas. It's because they have an itch and they need to scratch it. And then the old IT guys like me will say, I've already been there, done that. You can't fix it. But there are things that can be done. And I think thinking innovatively and strategically are ways to maybe do that. So it's fun that way.
Yeah. It's amazing because I give a lot of keynotes, and like it used to take me forever to like the slides, and like just it was very tedious. And now I can do it. I can create a presentation, and it's like really good, and it's got catchy titles and all these keywords, and it's just because like they can just bring an outside perspective on. Really fascinating.
What I like about that too is like your keynote speech has the bullet points are the same, right? You need to get A, B, and C points across. But like part of your job as a keynote speaker is to empathize and relate better to the group of people that you're speaking to. So in that example, it just allows you to say, hey, today we're talking to computer programmers and tomorrow we're talking to customer service teams. How can we alter our language there? I was working with a friend, and he was given a presentation to his team, and it's all in the construction industry. So it's, what can we use here? Instead of maybe we can start to use, hey, let's build up. We have a great foundation. Let's continue to construct more things here. So I think it allows you to get into the mind of your audience so much better before. And we all want to do the best for the audience. I mean, it just helps us learn, right? Like what things would they might ask. I mean, you can get your questions too, like, what questions would a group of construction folks ask me based on this data? And I don't know, it just allows me to be a better person and be better prepared so I can, come to the table with my game, right?
Yeah. How can people find out more about you and reach out to you in chat?
Yeah. Just look me up. LinkedIn is a great place to connect. Tom Altman, you'll see me there. The face is made for radio and hard to forget, Christopher.
Excellent. Yeah. And really enjoyed this conversation. So many insights and into AI and creative entrepreneurship. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.